that Nicole had died. One is tempted to lose hope. So I called Mary Ann, and I don't mind telling you, everybody, I was scared. I said, what am I going to say to this woman of faith, this woman of hope, who has been through such tragedy? What am I going to say? How could I dare to speak to her about trust in God? I didn't have to. She did it to me when I called. I simply said, Mary Ann, all I can say is all of us here love you, and we're praying with you and for you. And she said, it's been very difficult. And she said, I was holding Nicole, and I was rocking her in a rocking chair, and I knew she was dying. And I was rocking her and singing to her and telling her I love her as I was rocking her, and she died in my arms. And she said, all I can trust is that now she is sitting on the lap of God our Father, who will rock her and love her for all eternity. Mary Ann didn't lose her hope. She knew that there were some things in this life, some problems and difficulties and tragedies that will only be answered in the next. God brings together all things together for those who trust in him, as St. Paul tells us. I started with that young woman in Toronto whose life was saved because she got hope through Blessed John Paul II. I end with Dr. Mary Ann, who reminds us that sometimes hope and trust, sometimes God only answers us in all eternity. And I ask you to stand right now, all right? If you would stand, and let's go back to that Jesus, I trust in thee, which is a beautiful act of hope, is it not? Say it after me. Jesus, I trust in thee. Jesus, I trust in thee. We confess that we are people of faith who not only believe in God, but we're also people of hope who believe in a God who makes and keeps his promises. Jesus, I trust in thee. We confess that searching and longing and restlessness for you is at the core of our being. Jesus, I trust in thee. We profess that we come from you. We are made for you, and our hearts are restless until they return to you for all eternity. Jesus, I trust in thee. We confess that no thing and no one, however gracious, good, or beautiful, no thing or no one in this life can absolutely satisfy our longings, that only in God is our soul at rest. Jesus, I trust in thee. We profess that it is the invisible things of life that give us purpose and meaning. Jesus, I trust in thee, and we ask your grace that the enemies of hope, when we're discouraged by ourselves, when we're frustrated by others, when we're disappointed in the world, and where we're impatient with you, O Lord, for taking your good old time, we continue our hope because, Jesus, I trust in thee, and I love you, and thank you. Thanks for listening.
Some questions. I have a gentleman in a red vest and a woman in a gold top on either side of these aisles. Raise your hands. They have the microphone. If you have a question, and here the lines are starting, you can line up there, and we'll take it for about 15 or 20 minutes.
Thanks, Maggie. And not only questions, but observations or witnessing or testimony. I mean it, everybody. I'm sure grateful for your interest and your patience and your attention with me. You are a great inspiration. I look forward to Mass, the greatest prayer that we got, an act of hope. I understand that priests are available even now for the sacrament of penance. And I know that after Mass, the Blessed Sacrament is going to be reposed. So we'll have a chapel for Eucharistic adoration. Who we got? Maggie, it's tough for me to see here. Should I trust in the men in red vests? Okay.
Now it's fun to conflict.
I lost. But the church won, thank God, with Pope Francis. How are you?
My name is Joe Melendrez. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, but I reside in Los Angeles. The question I have for you is probably something that are on the minds and hearts of a lot of young people is how to continually renew your faith and constantly reinvent it, stay in it, don't let it get stale.
Way to go. Way to go.
Joe, yes.
Joe, thanks. Going to be in San Antonio in a week for the Knights of Columbus.
Oh, fantastic. Great. Well, welcome.
Thank you. You all heard Joe's question, right? How do we kind of renew and sustain our faith? Preview of coming attractions, Joe. You know, we catechists don't pick the themes. We're assigned them. Today was hope. Tomorrow is discipleship. Friday is mission. Tomorrow, and I think the themes blend together. So, Joe, tomorrow, how do we renew our faith? And Joe answered, well, it's through discipleship, okay? Hope. Hope is a virtue. By its very definition, hope then is a gift, a supernatural gift from God to those who ask for it. So simply put, Joe, I know this sounds simple, but it's rather profound. The best way to renew our hope is to ask the Lord who gives the virtue to instill it or fan it into a flame, as Paul writes to Timothy, within our heart. Now, that's a little more profound than you think about it. It's profound because, you see, the great theologians will often say that hope is the muscle of faith. Faith is sort of a statement, but hope is the muscle of faith. So when we ask for hope, we're exercising it. We're even in the ask, we're hoping. Because we're acknowledging God, from whom our hope and meaning and sense of purpose comes, okay? And we're trusting, Jesus, I trust in thee, that he's going to give us hope. So, Joe, if I could ask you maybe to stay tuned until tomorrow. I don't know what catechetical session you all are going to be at, but if the bishop who's going to run your catechetical session tomorrow is following the themes that we were given, I think, Joe, they're going to talk about that. How to sustain and renew our hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Cardinal. God bless.
There we go. I feel like I'm on Price is Right or something. All right. Here we are.
My name is Chloe Shockling. I'm from South Carolina.
Hi, Alicia. Nice to see you. Were you with that group today when I got here from South Carolina?
Yes.
Oh, they had biscuits and grits. It was just great out there.
I wanted to ask, it's a little lighthearted, but what is the biggest perk of being a cardinal?
Well, the Swiss Guard salute when you walk through the gates of the Vatican. That's kind of a biggie. I would have to tell you, Alicia, and this, I think you all could appreciate this, to have the astounding honor of gathering to elect a new successor of St. Peter. Now you're talking about, you're talking about a kid who grew up in St. Louis who wanted to be Stan Musial when he was a kid, okay? A St. Louis Cardinal, and then wanted to be a priest, and then wanted to be a parish priest, and all of a sudden I find myself in the Sistine Chapel with the awesome responsibility of being attentive to the Holy Spirit and trusting my gut, which is rather obvious, all right, to elect a new vicar of Christ. And Alicia, I don't know if I call it a perk or not, but it's sure an honor and a privilege that not too many folks have. And I'll go to my grave thanking God for that privilege. Thanks for asking. Sure. Okay.
Cardinal Dolan, on behalf of Johannesburg, we'd like to thank you for your time and patience this morning.
We thank you. Where are you?
Cardinal, a simple question. Besides the Bible and the Catechism, which other spiritual book do you turn to most often?
Good question, and I thank you for putting in, Andrew. Good, thank you for putting that art of God's inspired holy word. The Bible, of course, is the most important book. So, I was in one of those interviews once, and they said, "What book are you reading now?" And I said, "Well, the Bible." I've been reading it my whole life, and I'm never going to stop. All right. In the Catechism of the Catholic Church. I'll tell you another source of documents that I have found particularly sustaining this year, because it's the year of faith, announced by our former Holy Father, Pope Benedict, to coincide with the convening of the Second Vatican Council 50 years ago. Most of World Youth Day, you all were born after the Second Vatican Council. I was 12 when it opened in 1962. But I've recommended to the people of the Archdiocese of New York and to myself to reread those magnificent documents of the Second Vatican Council. There's another one. And let me give you a couple, if you're interested, Andrew, and apparently you are, or you wouldn't have asked so graciously. I love The Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis. In fact, my brother bishops and priests and deacons and religious women and men who are here, we had a selection for The Imitation of Christ in our office of readings today from the Liturgy of the Hours. And there's a book that I count on very, very, very much called The Soul of the Apostolate. Have you ever heard of it, Andrew? Written by Don Chautard, which I find to be very sustaining. I found some biggies recently. I mentioned Thomas Merton, his 7-Story Mountain, that I found, wow. I love St. Francis de Sales' Introduction to the Devout Life. I love the story of the soul by St. Therese, the little flower of Jesus. That's a good one. And I got to confess, I like anything that Pope Benedict XVI wrote. So thanks for asking. Okay?
Good morning, Cardinal.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm Richard White. I'm originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico, but I'm here with the Diocese of Charleston.
Glad you are, Richard. Welcome.
Makes me the only one who doesn't like grits. So sorry. You recently, within the last year, sat in very, well, I guess less so with the Sistine Chapel, but two very public and important seats, at least for Americans. You sat, obviously, in the Sistine Chapel as part of the College of Cardinals, but also the more interesting one I found is, despite a lot of controversy, you sat